Hi, my name's Tabone, and today I'm going to be taking you through the interculturality of Springwood. Before I begin, however, I feel like I need to give you a small introduction of where I'm going to be taking you. Springwood is a small town located about 100 kilometers from the Sydney CBD, and it is an incredibly one-sided town. If you look at the SBS census data, 90% of homes only speak English, and those that don't speak other European languages. There is not a great cultural diversity here. However, I'm going to take you through what does exist, and I'm going to delve into those as much as I can.
Noodle Paradise is hands down the best food venue in Springwood for a young uni student like myself. Nestled down at the quiet end of town between the bottle shop and a charcoal chicken place, the store is run by some incredibly friendly Chinese immigrants. Originally, I planned to interview them a bit and ask them for their story, but after it took me 10 minutes to ask permission to film, as I don't speak Mandarin and they speak only very broken English, I had to abandon this idea. Instead, we can look to the reviews left by the local community to admire their impact on Springwood's culture. S. Henkel reports, the Singapore noodles are a prime example of culinary orgasm, bursting with flavor, perfectly balanced spices, and just the right amount of heat. Whilst Chris Manning gives us an insight into the differences in language, saying, I've said thanks to them all every time I'm in there, but they tend to only speak their language with limited English. Noodle Paradise makes Chinese noodle dishes that have been adapted to suit the stereotypical Western perspective of Chinese food while still holding to their roots. Additionally, whilst they may not necessarily traditionally celebrate Christmas, we see a fusion of interculturation in the decorations that appear around the store, and that they take time off over the season. Tucked far down into the Blue Mountains' renowned national park, the hand paintings of Bobo Gully were long seen as a direct representation of indigenous culture in the region. Initial discoveries were limited to hand paintings using ochre, tucked just a couple meters off a common walking trail, an art style prominent in the region. Further investigations revealed additional charcoal artworks. In an atrocious turn of events, however, the paintings were vandalized, left permanently destroyed, and covered up with spray painted murals in what can only be seen as a direct attack on Aboriginal culture. In a small attempt at reparation and to avoid similar mistakes in the future, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this video was made, and these artworks situated, the Gundagara and Darug peoples, whose cultural sites, artworks, and stories reflect the ancient custodianship and sustainable care of the land on which we live, exhibiting a heritage still vibrant to this day. The location around the vandalized artworks is still a beautiful reminder of culture, and incidentally provided the perfect place for me to eat my noodle paradise from earlier. Thankfully, we can still observe similar exhibits of the artistic culture of our indigenous predecessors. The site of Red Hand's Cave in Glenbrook, about 10 kilometers away, holds similar artworks that have been more efficiently preserved. Additionally, the walk down to the artworks again represents the indigenous culture of the area, giving us a chance to experience the same walk of life in which our indigenous predecessors would have taken. Bottom Shore Park is a major space of community in Spring. The two large, sweeping hills creates the perfect space for families to have a picnic, or hang out in general. In doing so, creating space for encounter. The local netball courts adjacent have seen many a fierce rivalry, and host training for many of the local teams, again encouraging intercultural interaction. The park has also been the staging grounds for past major community events, the most notable being the Billy Cart Bash from 2015 to 2019, an event that encouraged movement away from discrimination and focused on bridging age gaps by creating activities that were applicable to everyone. At first glance, outside of events, the park doesn't necessarily invite direct interaction between groups that may not have otherwise been seeking it. But upon closer inspection, a few of the recent improvements to the park have addressed this. The recent play equipment upgrade has introduced enhanced accessibility, reducing discrimination based on the grounds of ability, and allowing people in all walks of life to enjoy the same recreation regardless. The upgrades also included elements to highlight the sister city of the Blue Mountains' international friendship with our Japanese sister city, Sanda City. This relationship has led to many intercultural relationships, including a national exchange between students in 2024, where high school students were able to travel to the sister city financed by the local council. Sir Henry Parkes Estate is a formidable reminder of the early Australian culture. This monolith of a ruin was constructed by Sir Henry Parkes, an early prominent political figure and the first Premier of New South Wales. He was strongly opposed to the convict culture of the time, being well known for his role in the Great Protest which greeted the convict ship Hashini in 1849, as well as travelling back and forth between England and Australia to eventually abolish Australia being a penal colony. As a result, Sir Henry Parkes' estate continues to stand as a monument of the Australian values of opposition against oppression. The site was once a hotspot for community gathering. Families would walk the parklands around the site, or pick blackberries if it was the right season, as well as children playing in the castle ruins or the nearby bike shed or pool. The local short film Dreamcatcher had a couple scenes shot on the location. Sadly, however, the location was closed to the public since being bought out by a Chinese chain company. My attempts to revisit the site were met with locked fences, cameras, and alarms. Instead, however, I was able to capture some footage of where Sir Henry Parkes was laid to rest. St. Thomas Aquinas parish of Springwood fills a significant role in the community as a religious and communal hub for the region. The parish continues to be shaped by the different cultural influences that come and go over the years, many being the legacy of whichever priest was present at the time. Here, depictions of saints from different cultures, notably Lebanon and Australia. The community bands together in worship and in other church practices on a daily basis. Larger community events happen less often. This creates an element of cross-culturation, as the church is the most racially diverse part of Springwood, its congregation being an even split between Anglo-Saxon and other cultures, notably different from the suburb's 90% Anglo community. Different elements of many cultures are recognizable, visible throughout the different art styles, the Spanish cross, the Croatian altar decor, and the Italian main christening candle. In this, the church community counters stereotypes of being exclusionist, an attribute which has been given to Catholic churches for a long time. The community was, overall, very welcoming and friendly. However, due to there being many children, I decided not to include many of the parishioners in my footage. Overall, this assessment has allowed me to come to a greater understanding of the region in which I live, especially being able to note that whilst not maybe as culturally diverse as these areas of Sydney, Springwood still has much cultural diversity to explore.